Wait, we started? I haven't checked my hair.
I oh
Oh, this oh
oh
this might not work. It's awfully shiny.
yeah.
All right.
You didn't put your camera makeup on, did
I
you?
did not. Did
Oh.
not. I was not ready for this.
Not ready for it. We've talked about it for like a month now. Oh, anyways, why are we here today?
We are discussing what we used to refer to as Hell Week, but it is currently Hell Month after we started looking at how our journey began with our full-time RVing. So selling our house. It
Mhm.
was Hell Month of 2021.
It was. And I think we started thinking about this and started talking about it because we were just reflecting on our past year of like this year went by really fast. Um, and then we were like, yeah, but do you remember Hell Week? And so we started thinking about it. And so if you guys, watching this, and then we want you to watch the next video too, because that's going to be more of a reflection on our past year, the things that we've learned that we want to keep doing, the things that we have learned that we don't want to do anymore. Just growth and change and everything. So that's going to be the next video. But this one, we wanted to just kind of focus on what we're now calling Hell Month. I think for several reasons. Number one, I think it's healing for us. Um, and it's, if you can hear that, the cat is playing with a toy. Um, it took me a second to figure out what it was. Um, but I think just reflecting on it to see how far we've come. But there were a lot of lessons, I think, in that week. Um, and certainly for me, it's a reminder that even when things are really, really hard,
They can get worse.
shut up. I think things can always get worse. But when things are really, really hard, if you know what it is that you're working towards and you have your vision, you have a mission in mind, that even when they're really, really hard, you can still get through it. And why do I have you here? You're supposed to be like uplifting, and then now we're getting, yeah, they could get worse. Things could always get worse. However, I think there's lessons in everything, even the really hard times. So you want to start off with kind of the first thing, all month.
Hell
Like,
Month.
how did it start?
Well, it started when we decided to sell the house and move to Arizona. But that came with, well, Jaron was pretty much moved out.
Mhm.
He was living with his friend, and most of his stuff was out of the house. He didn't have very much left there. But JC was still at home. So she had to pack up, and she was getting ready to go to college. But
Mhm.
she also had to pack up everything else that she couldn't take with her to her dorm so that we could be ready to move after she had already gone to college. So that's
So
kind of
really, I mean, we had kind of looked at this, so I just want to, for time reference, we kind of decided that we were going to put the house on the market. Well, originally it was kind of May, right? We wanted to be ready by May, and so we knew Jaron was moving out in February, March timeframe, right? And we were getting some work done on the house. Um, and then knowing that JC was going to go to college, that we were taking her down in August, right? So we originally, I think, wanted to have the house on the market in May was our original time frame. I just want to give a little bit of reference because if we're talking about Hell Month, this is kind of before Hell Month. Um, but our date for listing the house kept getting pushed off because things kept happening, right? And so we really got it listed, and when we finally got everything worked out, we put it on the market the first part of August, right? It's
correct.
the first part of August 2021. So Jaron was gone, and we had been packing. JC had been packing because she knew that, or we knew we were taking her down to Arizona from Colorado to Arizona, kind of the middle-ish of August. So she had most of her, well, she said she had most of her stuff done. Turns out she didn't. she waited until like the day before we left to get her stuff packed. But okay, so anyway, so that was kind of reference time frame. We got the house on the market, and then we started prepping for yard sale and what are we taking and what are we not taking.
Making the big decisions of how much furniture do you try to move 1,000 miles, or do you sell it all? Is it going to fit into a new house if you buy one? And how it all going to play out? So we tried to sell pretty much everything that we could that wasn't a family heirloom.
Mm-hmm.
So beds and couches and dining room tables and chairs and even quite a bit of our home decor,
Mm-hmm.
all of our outside patio furniture, yard stuff. It wasn't custom made family heirloom. It was going in the yard sale.
Mm-hmm. And actually, at this time, we were still planning on purchasing a home in Arizona. We had not, that was still our goal to sell the house. We didn't want to move all of this stuff because, again, we didn't know if it was going to fit in a new home, but just logistically of moving, renting U-Hauls or whatever it is that we were planning on doing at that time, we didn't want to move all of this stuff anyways. And so our plan was the money that we made from selling all this stuff, we were just holding back in an envelope to repurchase or to purchase new items for the new house when we move. So at this time, when we put our house on the market, we were still planning on owning a home in Arizona.
Yep.
And it wasn't really within a couple of days after we got the house listed that we're like, we need to do something different. Like we're not going to be able to buy a home. And I don't want to go into necessarily all of those reasons why we couldn't purchase a home. I think that that's a really good video episode that we can record at another time. But we went from purchasing a home to we're just going to find a place to rent down there.
Yeah, that didn't last very long.
Well, no, because I called a million, and again, this can go into another video that I don't necessarily want to focus on, but long story short, owning a home in the time frame that we were looking at and some of the circumstances didn't appear to be a possibility. Renting turned out to be kind of
Couldn't find anything that wasn't at least a year lease.
and they wouldn't accept cash and they wouldn't allow us to pay for it up front. So, and again, if you followed us, part of this story, but I don't want to necessarily, but so we went, and I think part of the reason why we're sharing this is because the emotional pulls that we went through of we're selling our home, but we don't have a place to go. Like, what are we going to do? We can't, and I'm going to use the word can't, and language is big for me, but we felt like we couldn't purchase a home at that time and we couldn't find a place to rent at that time. So it really felt the emotions that came along with that of like, what the hell are we going to do? Like, what are we going to do? Because we didn't have our houses on the market and we don't have a place to go. So I think that's part of where it started too. So I'll throw that in there. But then that first weekend in August of, so working towards that first weekend in August of the yard sale and putting literally everything that we could possibly put out there to sell. And we did. We sold a lot of stuff.
We got rid of the majority of it.
Mm-hmm. And so that was, and you were still working. So you're still working 50, 60 hours a week. I was working. So in the midst of all this working, trying to work out college details, right? How we're getting JC down when we're leaving, all of that stuff, you taking time off of work to get JC down. So again, a lot of emotions going through all of this. And it was really tough actually. But we did the yard sale. So the first weekend in August, and then it was the following weekend, right, that we were leaving to take JC to college. It's the following weekend.
Yep.
I've even got, so yeah, we did yard sale the first weekend, and then we left the following weekend to move her. And so it was both vehicles loaded up. the truck and
the
her
truck, yeah,
Forerunner.
truck and her Forerunner, and we took off at, I don't know, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and headed for Tempe, Arizona. So that was a 1,000-mile drive,
Mm-hmm.
right at that, one way straight through, like 14 hours.
Mm-hmm. And we chose to drive straight through because we actually didn't have the extra days in our schedule to be able to stay overnight. Partly.
And the other part was, at that point, we had kind of decided on purchasing a fifth wheel camper and staying in it temporarily in Arizona until we could find a place to purchase. So we hadn't purchased a camper yet, but once we got JC down to Arizona
Mm-hmm.
and moved into her dorm, we spent a day and a half driving around the Phoenix area, looking at campgrounds or RV resorts or
Mhm.
whatever you want to call them, before turning around and driving 14 hours back home. So that was really the start, I think.
Well, and yeah, driving down, and it was, I think it was about 14 or 15, a little bit longer, just because we did have both vehicles. We did a few more stops because there were the three of us and what you and I would have done normally, but just to switch out drivers, and she had never driven that far. And so, we stopped to stretch our legs and just all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, getting down there, getting her moved into campus, and situated, and getting the first, several days, or, all the paperwork and all that stuff figured out with her, and then us on the phone and researching and trying to figure out where we were staying campgrounds, and then leaving her. Actually, when we left, we still didn't have a definite place that we had booked. So we're
We
like,
had a list of like our top 5 places that we would stay. We had a list of places where we wouldn't have stayed.
mm-hmm. Well, we were running into a lot of them were like 55 and older communities, so we couldn't get in there because we don't meet those qualifications. A lot of campgrounds, the year of your fifth wheel or RV, like there's requirements. It can only be, no more than 10 years old. Well, again, we still hadn't purchased one, but we had one in mind. We had never seen it. We heard it was in good condition. I mean, we trusted that it was, not that we felt like we were getting into a bad deal, but we just had never seen it. And so calling around and asking, measurements and what does it look like? And we didn't know because we had never seen it. And so we were last minute trying to get pictures of the owners, have the owner send us pictures of it, which thankfully worked. But because we didn't even secure a spot until we were on our way home, I got a call and said, yeah, we've got a spot for you guys for a couple of months. So that was, that was a week, not 4 days, really. So 2 days of driving and 2 days there. And then, so we got back.
You got the spot secured, so we had a plan, or we had a place to stay once we got down there. So we went to look at the fifth wheel, and we drove out and we looked at it, and it came with the fifth wheel hitch for the back of the truck. So we went out there and we looked at it, and we decided that would work for what we needed and for the short time that we were going to be living in it. And so we went ahead and purchased that, but fifth wheel plate that it came with would not match up or bolt into my truck at all. So we ended up leaving it where it was at, and it took a week and a whole lot of research to figure out what kind of fifth wheel system our truck partially had in it, so that we could get parts ordered to get the right system for actually pulling the camper safely. So that was a stressful week of lots of phone calls and visits to RV dealerships and
Mhm.
lots of internet searching, just trying to figure out exactly what kind of system that somebody had previously installed in that truck. So
Yeah, and I mean, I think we were feeling the pressure because we were set to close on September 17th on the house. That was our closing date. I don't remember the exact time frame, but within all of this other thing happening, we got notification that the buyers wanted to move closing up a week to September 10th. So in the midst of all of this, we also had house closing moved up a full week. Um, so we yard sale, couple of days and all the stress of that, not knowing where we're going, decide we're going to live in a fifth wheel for a while, get JC down to college, back, purchase fifth wheel, to figure out that some of that isn't working, stressing out about how we're going to make this happen. You're still working. Um, and then, I mean, I'll give a shout out to Amazon because they did come through. We ended up finding the new hitch, the
brackets
the
that we needed.
rails or yeah, for off of Amazon, and it was delivered literally barely in time. And so the following weekend, then we went out to pick up the camper. And that was stressful too.
I've driven semi for multiple years, but never pulled a fifth wheel camper behind a pickup. It's definitely a little bit different. Wasn't intimidated really, but it's definitely there was some learning that had to go there. Had
Mhm.
never really stayed a night in a camper before, so lots of YouTube videos learning how to use all of the features in a camper because it's
Mhm.
not like your regular house. So all the plumbing is different. The faucets turn the wrong way for your hot water and your cold water, and
Mhm.
12-volt lighting systems instead of regular 110 like your house has. It's
Just a lot to learn in really a relatively short amount of
short amount of
time.
time.
And then, this posed one other, I guess, some questions is we have we had two cats, only one now, but two cats and a dog. And so what does this mean with the animals living in a fifth wheel? Like there were just so many unknowns and how we were going to make it happen. But we got the fifth wheel back to the house in Kersey. We went through, we cleaned that out and started moving stuff from the house into that what we thought we might need to live in there for a little bit of a time. And then we started selling more things out of the house because we recognized this won't fit in a fifth wheel.
Yeah.
and so we're like, okay, we need to get rid of even more things. Um, and just I think anybody who's moved, I think you recognize that you have way more stuff around your house than you think you have. But I think for us, and this was my first experience moving states, moving 1,000 miles away. And not only that, but moving into a fifth wheel for a time being that, um, just how much shit that you really don't need. And then what do you do with it all? If you can't get rid of it, some places, it was just a lot. It was just a lot going through all of that. Um, so we're cleaning the fifth wheel and start loading stuff into that. But then we're looking at, so now we're really about a month. So 4 weeks after yard sale, right? We have JC down to school. We've secured a place to move the fifth wheel. We've got the fifth wheel home. You have your last day of work at that job. I think it was like the first Friday in September of last year. So literally right at a year ago. And our next plan was, well, and we should mention too that within this time, you were looking for employment in Arizona. So during this too, you didn't have a job
I didn't have
to
a job
go
to go
to.
to.
So we were a little bit freaked out about that. And I mean, it's not funny. Like, I've cried over thinking about these 6 weeks or something a lot because it was so freaking hard. But you know, how quickly life can change. But you were still trying to secure employment, which we think in the middle of this, you did. I think you had this secured by this, you had a position secured by about this time, but which changed our timeline a little bit because you had to give them when your start date
Yeah, and they
could
were they
be.
were super accommodating with that.
Mm-hmm.
They your situation, and he's like, well, like I understand you're going to be moving, you're going to be living in the fifth wheel, you've got to get all your stuff moved down here. So said and
Mm-hmm.
done, we were in Arizona for a week before I had to start. So we had time to somewhat get settled in.
Yeah. Um, but so we're at like basically Labor Day weekend, right? So it's busy weekend. We rent a, how long was the trailer?
26-foot enclosed. It's actually a race car trailer,
Mm.
but so 26-foot long, 8-foot wide inside.
So we're like, yeah, plenty of room.
We completely packed that thing, trying to get all of our family heirlooms and clothes and furniture that we didn't get sold that we weren't willing to just give away or throw away. Trying to get all of that packed into that trailer was a complete nightmare.
And we left a lot of stuff for free out because, and it was hard because it's not stuff that we necessarily even wanted to get rid of, but we didn't, I said there was no other option. Our option was to rent another trailer and load up a second trailer and drive it down, which was not something that we were really willing to do. So we packed that trailer and the truck full, and we had taken the dog out. So we took the dog out to your mom and dad. So they kept the dog for a couple of weeks. The cats were okay at the house. I mean, they can be by themselves for a while, but so we packed the trailer, which took so much freaking longer than what we had anticipated because we didn't have help. So it was just the two of us. And we worked, I think we were planning on packing it, what, like, I think so we picked it up and everything, I think on Saturday. We plan on packing it Monday, and then we plan on taking off on Monday, or got it Saturday, plan on packing it Sunday, and planned on taking off on Monday.
Something like that.
But what happened was, is we got it Saturday. That took a little bit longer. I don't remember what happened. I feel like something got us held up. Oh, we had to take the camper. So we had to hook the fifth wheel up and take it out to my aunt and uncle's to park it there because we didn't have room on the street at the house to park it. So we had to load that up and take it out and leave it there. And that took a little bit of time. And then go and pick up the enclosed trailer and get it back to the house. But then there were some things with the closing of the house that we were, I think, dealing with. There was some additional paperwork, or there was something we had to call around and get quotes for some other fixes and services. And I think tidying up a few things like closing out like mail and just some of these things that we were trying to get done last minute. I think that was within that day. And then we started loading it. But it literally took us all day Saturday and actually most of the day Monday, which happened to be Labor Day that day. It took us 6 times longer than we had anticipated that it was going to take.
Once we realized how much stuff we had, then we had to unload a bunch of stuff and repack it so that we could get it all in there. And then even then it was not pretty. But we got it all fit in there. And we took off with the 26-foot enclosed trailer and a pickup bed full of stuff and headed back to Arizona.
Yeah, and we ended up leaving like really late at night, like 9 or 10 o'clock at night, which was way later, but we had because again, we were on a time limit, and now we're at like Monday night. We were closing on the house by Friday. So we had to get down to Arizona, unload the trailer, get back, finish loading the camper, get everything else packed up and the house cleaned by Friday. And so we were on a very, very tight time crunch. So we left, I think Monday it was like, or maybe it was, I don't remember exactly. Maybe it was actually Sunday night because we were wondering if we had to rent a storage unit now. And it was Labor Day. That's what happened, right? We worked all night Saturday and all day Sunday. And we took off Sunday night so we could unload Monday, Labor Day, to get everything. I'm remembering this now. So we loaded up and left. It was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night on Sunday night. And we ended up sleeping for a couple of hours because we were literally dead tired and like everything hurt. We weren't eating, we weren't drinking anything, like nothing. And we stopped at actually the Loves wasn't bad, but in Las Vegas, New Mexico, if anybody's ever been to Las Vegas, New Mexico, don't recommend. It's a sketchy fucking place, like sketchy, but we stopped there at like 1 o'clock in the morning at a truck stop just to lay the seats back in the truck and try and sleep for a couple hours.
I rested up and made it flawlessly down to.
And actually, now that I'm remembering, it was so early in the morning. We went directly to, we didn't even check into the hotel.
So.
Because now it's all coming back to me. So we slept and we literally drove the rest of the way and
went directly
to the storage unit on Monday, on Labor Day last year, and spent, I think it took us like 6 hours to unload
it. It didn't take near as long to unload it as it did to get it loaded.
But it was awful because it was
115 degrees inside that storage unit.
Well, and it was 110 outside. Yeah. And we had no water. The thing wasn't open, so you couldn't like go in and use the bathroom. We had no food in us. Like literally, we had nothing except for like, we have no other option. Like we have to do this. We got all that.
That's a mad driving skills though, because that 26-foot enclosed trailer was not designed to be put where we put it inside of that little storage unit area.
We pulled it in, and the lady's like, "How long are you?" And we were like 54 feet long with the truck and the trailer because it's bumper pull trailer. And she's like, and I said, I specifically asked when I was calling to reserve this, and she's like, "Yeah." She goes, "Generally, we say nothing longer than like 30 feet or, total.
Or a 20-foot trailer.
Like a 20-foot trailer." I'm like, yeah, well, we're way longer, but we got it all unloaded, got it in, and we left there and went to the hotel. And I'm not sure if we even ate. I think we drank some water.
I think we drank some water, and then we met up with JC for her birthday dinner because her birthday was the next day, or her birthday was a couple days after that, I guess.
Did we meet up with her that?
I think so, because then we slept really, really hard that night because we didn't get moving near early enough the next morning.
No, God, yes. And we walked because we didn't want to unhook the trailer. So we had to walk like a couple of miles to a grocery store because we wanted to get her a gift card for her birthday, and I wanted to get her some fresh flowers and a card because we didn't have time to do that before we left. And so we walked, and it was pretty warm. And again, we had just spent, I think we took a little bit of a nap. We unloaded and we took a little bit of nap. Anyways, walked down, got her stuff, and she came over. And then we took her out to eat for her birthday, and then she left, and we crashed hard and got up way later the next day to head back to Colorado. And made it into just outside of Trinidad, I think, right?
That was just north of Trinidad.
Dark. It was like 10 o'clock at night or something, or 9 o'clock at night by this point. And we watched the car on I-25, watch a car in front of us. We didn't actually see them hit something, but
they swerved and then hit their brakes and went over to the shoulder really fast.
And about that time, then we heard like this, like a psh, like this something. And we're like, what? I'm like, oh my, we blew a freaking tire. So
Yeah, we hit something in the road and it big old puncture hole right in the base of the tire on the pickup
we're there
in the dark.
in the dark, spent, like no energy, no food, no, dehydrated, like literally emotionally everything was gone with a blown tire. Again, knowing that we're on a very tight time crunch too. But I mean, as I stood alongside the road with a flashlight and yelled at people because they did not pull over, or get into the other lane. So PSA, when you see people off the side of the road, please move over. Like it's dangerous, and there was no reason why. It was late enough, there wasn't that much traffic. So PSA, pull over when you see somebody sitting alongside the road, because otherwise you're going to run across somebody crazy like me, because I was yelling and gestures and everything else was happening because I was pissed. But we got that changed, and luckily we had an air compressor with us, because the spare,
Spare. It was a little low. It wasn't bad, but it
no,
was
but
a little low.
pulling a trailer.
We made it up the road to the rest area and got the spare tire aired up and checked for damage on everything to make sure that whatever we hit didn't mess anything else up. And we were back on the road. I think we rolled into Kersey about 1 o'clock in the morning
Mhm.
and went into our empty house that was getting ready to be sold and slept on the floor because we had moved our bed.
Yeah, we had nothing left, and our original plan was to get back early enough in time to go and sleep in the fifth wheel out at my aunt and uncle's. But
It didn't happen.
it did not happen. So we slept on the floor on a couple of comforters just to give it extra padding, which doesn't give it extra padding on a hard floor. Oh,
We woke up the next morning and returned the 26-foot enclosed trailer and picked up the fifth wheel and dropped the tire off at the tire shop to get it fixed and started cleaning the house. When, wait for it. Dun dun dun. The realtor calls and says that the other people can't close on their house, so they're going to push closing on ours.
yeah.
That wasn't in our plans at all.
No, so it was originally for a week later, and then it got moved up a week, and then they wanted to push it back a week, and we're just like, okay, something's got to give. Like
Well,
we,
at that point, I'd already committed to a job in Arizona, so we went ahead with our plans and got the house cleaned and got the rest of the stuff loaded up onto the flatbed, the motorcycle, and all of the iron work for the gardens, the archway that we got married under, and
we had the
all of that
grill and
stuff.
the smoker, or not the grill. We gave the grill to Jaren, but we had the smoker and the outdoor plant pots and um the yeah, just everything loaded it up. But it that took a lot longer to get everything loaded onto the trailer, get strapped down, the rest of the stuff into the fifth wheel, and then to get the house clean. It's just like every door we open, or every turn you made, there was more shit somewhere. Like there was more stuff in the garage, in the greenhouse, in the shed out back. It's just like our stuff, it felt like it kept multiplying, and we just started putting it all out for free. And then I'm trying to find a trash service that would pick it up, because our normal trash service wouldn't. So we got trash service scheduled. um so I mean, so you fast forward to Friday morning, that's when we went in to do our piece on closing. And we got everything, all of the paperwork and everything signed, went back, and we were still finishing stuff up because we weren't done.
But thank goodness the house was still ours at that point.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice that we did have, I mean, I think technically we were supposed to be out, but
No, if they
we
hadn't closed on it, it was still ours. We
Well,
didn't have to be out.
I
It
can.
was still ours until they closed.
All right. Well, so we had a few extra hours to get everything, yeah, finish getting it all cleaned and ready to go. And I think by the time we actually loaded up, it wasn't until maybe 5 o'clock that night that we got all the house plants loaded into the Forerunner. We moved the cats into the Forerunner, which was a miserable experience. You took the fifth wheel and the truck, and I had the Forerunner and the flatbed with all the stuff on it. We drove out to your mom and dad's house, stayed the night there, grabbed the dog, and we took off early Saturday morning.
And we made it all the way down to Albuquerque, New Mexico,
Mm-hmm.
with no issues really.
No, it wasn't too bad. I mean, it was hard with the cats because they cried. They'd never been in a vehicle before. The dog wasn't super excited about that. I think, they all knew stuff was going on, but fair amount of traffic, but relatively, like, I was dog freaking tired. So I called you a lot just to try and keep me awake because we weren't eating, we weren't drinking, we weren't sleeping, and it had been a really emotional, it's been such an emotional past several weeks.
Yeah.
And now we knew that we were headed someplace that we wanted to go, like we were looking forward to it, but there were still so many unknowns. It was still at this time that I had called where we had the reservations for the RV though, and I said, hey, we're not coming in, originally it was going to be like the 4th. I said, no, we're looking at like the 10th. And she's like, I don't have your name down. I was like, oh no, yes, you do. You absolutely do. I talked to so there was a bit of a snafu. They did get us a spot in, but that was still relatively nerve-wracking. We made it to Albuquerque, and then there was road construction or an accident or something on
construction. They completely just shut down the interstate.
Yeah. And it wasn't that late, I don't feel like. I don't think it was that late at night. We were planning on staying around Albuquerque, but really about a couple miles down the road.
Yeah, it was about 8 o'clock.
Mm-hmm. And it was pretty warm.
We were stuck on the interstate in bumper to bumper traffic.
Well, and then we had to get off so bumper to bumper on the interstate, and then the detour to take you around. But there were accidents, and it literally, the detour was like through town or something with stoplights.
The traffic just wasn't moving.
No,
we sat
anywhere. I think it was well over an hour and a half. I think we sat. By this point, it was still like it was 100 degrees outside. The Forerunner, like, it was literally on fire. The transmission
literally on fire. It was just getting really, really hot.
It burned my hand, the whole center console inside. I was getting, the engine temperature was way up in the red. Oil pressure was I don't know. So I'm like calling you. I'm like, okay, I don't know what to do. So I turned the heater on because, if you've ever driven a vehicle where it overheats or something, you turn the heater on to pull the engine heat off. So I'm sitting, I can't roll the windows down because I have 2 cats that are trying to escape. So I couldn't actually roll my windows down, and I had the heater on inside. And I'm just like, I'm crying. I'm like, I'm done with this. What are we doing this for? We made
to live
it.
Our dreams.
To live our dreams. Yeah. It did not feel great. It didn't feel great at the time. And there were other things happening too. I mean, they're just, God, it was.
Made it to the truck stop. We got parked. And we had gotten a hamburger from the truck stop, Carl's Jr., which was fantastic. She's making terrible faces, but I like me a good Carl's Jr. burger.
Mm-hmm.
And then we get a knock on the door. It's a very polite local sheriff's deputy telling us that we can't park there. We have to find an actual parking spot at the truck stop, even though the road was closed and there was no place to park anything anywhere. So we had to find new places to park. We got the Forerunner into a parking spot that opened up, and then There was another one just a little ways down. I was trying to get the camper into and got into an altercation with a truck driver who didn't think that I should be parking my camper at a truck stop, even though he wasn't even pulling a trailer. He was just a truck driver in a truck. He was telling me that I could stop and sleep anywhere. That
Yeah, he was bobtailing.
yeah,
I'm like, you got less of a load than we do, buddy.
yeah, yeah. It'd be a lot
And your
easier.
own place to sleep. Like you whatever. This
Anyways,
isn't
we
against
made it through the night.
barely. But we got up the next morning, got on the road, and we're driving down from Flagstaff. And I'm behind you at this point. You had driven was I behind you the whole time?
Yeah, you were.
And tire blows on the fifth wheel, like explodes, smoke comes out, and we're like downhill. There was literally no shoulder to speak of. So we pulled over and had to change a literally blown, shredded tire. And then we made it a couple of miles, which was where we were going to stop anyways, because
Yeah.
we had stopped a little diner a couple years before and they had really good food. And so we stopped there and went in and got some food. And finally made it to the RV campground. And we walk in and we're like, hey, we're here. And I don't know. She's like, I was pissed because we hadn't called ahead. They're parking. There's just like no parking for the Forerunner and pulling the trailer. The flatbeds, it was an 18-foot flatbed trailer, like no place to park it within the park. We're trying to get the fifth wheel, it's again emotional, and we're registering, and I think it was Tammy. She's like,
She asked you how the trip was.
yeah, she asked me how the trip was, and I literally started crying, and I was just like, I'm bawling, and I'm like, no, I'm like, this is awful. And she's like, no crying, no crying, no crying. And I'm like, it's already freaking done. Like, it was, God, it was, all I can say is that it was so hard. But we got that parked, got the fifth wheel parked and unhooked. And then we went out and we had to drive another hour with a Forerunner and the flatbed to leave it at our friend's house. Thank goodness they allowed us to park our flatbed trailer there. And we made it back, and there's probably a million other things that I'm forgetting, but all I can say is that it was so hard. And we were talking a little bit before this, it probably ranks up into the top 3 most emotionally, physically
Draining experiences.
draining experiences of my whole life. One of the top 3. We left Jaron, we left our son in Colorado, which was so freaking hard. We left all of our friends, we left our family to start something new with so many unknowns. Like that for me was difficult. But just looking back on, call it Hell Week, but really we made 3 trips. So it was
Right at 5,000 miles
I was
total.
going to say about 6, but in between 5 and 6,000. Well, I guess no, you're right, 5, because we didn't make the one. So 5,000 miles within 3 weeks of each other. And that 1 week, it was down and back and down again.
It was 3,000 miles in 4 days.
Yeah. So hard. But I mean, honestly, I guess I could say takeaway from me just from that week is that, as cliche, I guess, as it might sound, like knowing that you're working on something that is what you really want. And I think what we really wanted was to get out of Colorado and to move to Arizona. But I think for me too, it was to live something different, to get more sunshine, to get away from the the cold. And I think there was even some deeper things that I didn't even realize at the time, but it really, and a lot of people have said it, and I didn't see it maybe at the time, I see it now, but I think it really is courageous and brave to make a big life change like that, that I don't think, I certainly didn't give people enough credit for that in the past.
Oh, me neither. Like, oh, you just packed up and left. Well, there's a lot more that goes into it than just packing up and leaving. So it definitely takes some planning, and there is a lot of stress involved.
Mm-hmm. So that was a recap of our hell week or hell month or hell 6 weeks, whatever you want to call it. But I think, what I'd like for you guys to get out of this, I want you to find your own insights within this. But I think just you reflecting on a lot of your journey and the times that were really hard and what you have learned through that. And because I think that we have, and I know I certainly have, on what I learned during those weeks and that month, and just trusting. I just kept saying, like, this is what we're supposed to be doing. Like, I just knew that whatever we had to go through is what we had to go through, and there was a lesson to be learned. And now looking back at where we're at now, I see why all of that stuff happened. I see why we couldn't at the time buy a house or couldn't rent. Like, I see why we needed to sell the rest of our stuff, and I see why the driving back and forth, like, I see how that plays so much into our life now, that there really was there was a reason for all that to happen.
I don't regret any of it.
I don't regret any of it. That's not true. I think there are parts that I regret that um I think I would have maybe I don't know that people really offered to help, but I think that there could have been, or we could have reached out to ask for help, and we didn't do that. And I think that that could have eased some of the stress a little bit. Just, I think taking better care of ourselves during that process, like taking a break to actually get something to eat or to hydrate, to just sit, that we didn't do that. And I think it just compounded some of the other things because we didn't allow any of those breaks to happen, because we were so focused on getting done that we didn't focus on what part of this process can we take care of ourselves during. We didn't do that. And I think that that could have been an important piece. We might not have been as exhausted. And just knowing that everything it seems to work out in some way or another. So,
Well, if you've made it this far in the video, we appreciate you hanging around for our rambling, because there's quite a bit of it there. But that was our journey. That was us getting rid of a house and trying to figure out how to move to Arizona. So, people,
yeah, watch the next one too, as we reflect on this past year and what it's looked like. So